trade association, and we are the voice of the construction industry here on Oahu. And our members are contractors and builders, associates, everyone involved with primarily residential construction here in Hawaii, and the BIA represents their interests, whether at the legislature or at our events, such as the home show we just had this weekend, and in a lot of the training and education that we provide through our association and through our construction training center of the Pacific here in Waipahu.
Well, that's very big. I mean, you're talking about a lot of people, aren't you?
Yeah, we have about 360 members so far, and so it's a great group of people really committed to improving the industry here in Hawaii for everyone.
Well, and I think that both either you, Lesley, or Gladys here could talk about, of course, this last year was one of those years when we look back and it's kind of amazing to really think back on what we had to go through. I mean, with Kauai and with just their storms, they had flooding. And then we got the huge volcano on the Big Island, and then we had the hurricanes and Lane, and so there was a lot of work that had to be done quickly. And so that takes a lot of organization. I assume that some of the training people can go through on Monday is going to address that. Is that correct?
Yeah, and you're exactly right, Cindy. This last year, across the nation, across the globe, really brought catastrophic storm systems to the forefront. There were super typhoons, there were wildfires. Of course, in Hawaii, we faced tropical storms, hurricanes, volcanoes, as you mentioned, and all of those really serious storm systems are predicted to increase in the next decade or so. So we're likely to continue to see these catastrophic events. As a result of that, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration made these funds available and especially chose BIA to apply for the funds as a past recipient of a very successful training program that BIA held. So I'm actually serving as project coordinator on this disaster response and preparedness training project. So we are, as you mentioned, you went through all the details first, but just to reiterate a couple of those, the training will kick off here in Hawaii on Monday in Maui. We have the two sessions, as you mentioned, 8 to noon and 1 to 5, and then we will be across the state. So more information can be found for the Maui training and then the additional Hawaii trainings at BIA-Hawaii.org.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you're doing that because Oahu is the 6th, and then you have Hilo on the 7th and Kona on the 8th and Kauai on the 25th, so a little gap there before Kauai. And what's interesting about this is this really does include information that's going to be valuable to so many different people, because obviously contractors, but there's workers as well. There's employees, there's employers. There's a lot of businesses that need to know about this. I mean, we need to know about it because we're on the radio, right? I mean, we need to definitely know about it because on the radio we have to give out information and we need to coordinate with all these people as well. And it's so important to remember first responders. First responders are a huge part of this as well.
Absolutely, Cindy. And so our primary demographic for this training are contractors and workers, as you mentioned. So it's really easy to see the pertinence of their involvement. If there's a major catastrophic storm system, they're going in and maybe rebuilding or having to encounter that disaster area. And then the same with first responders. Obviously, those folks are going to be the first people there, and they might encounter flooding and down electrical lines and all kinds of things. But really, this information is pertinent to anyone. So I hope that you'll join us, Cindy, if you're able to make it in on Monday for one of the sessions. And I should mention that both sessions, 8 to noon and 1 to 5, they're the same. We've just provided 2 opportunities to attend. Yeah, so no need to register for both, but one or the other, whichever works into someone's day, we'd love to have you.
And that is the next question I was going to actually ask. Do people need to register in advance or can they just show up?
We would love it if you registered. We do have a limited capacity room, and last I heard, we're nearing capacity. I believe we have about 12 more seats or so for the morning and 10 or so more for the afternoon. So we would like you to register. If you're unable to register, though, still come. There is a chance that we won't be able to accommodate you, but we typically see a little bit of extra space open up, so we wouldn't want to discourage anybody, particularly if you're in the area. So come down and see us, but try to get on and register first so that we can guarantee you a seat. It is free. I don't think I mentioned. The training is free. It has been made possible, as I mentioned, by the OSHA grant and also the support of a number of partners. NELHA over on the Big Island has supported the training. Maui County is supporting the training, also KICO, as well as a number of other organizational partners.
And to register, do they go to BIA-Hawaii.org? Is that the place to register?
That's the best place to go. Yeah, that will get you. You'll see the link right at the top, disaster response. So if you go to BIA-Hawaii.org, click on disaster response on the top right, you'll get right to us. You can also go directly to the link, which is BIA-Hawaii.org/disaster-response. That one's a little longer, so I know that one might not be as easy to find, but BIA-Hawaii.org will get you there.
Well, and Lesley, I'm very curious because this is such an important thing, and I'm actually in awe. People who can get grants are my heroes of sorts. I know, because a lot of people don't even know how to do it or can't. They get so intimidated about the concept of doing this that I'm really impressed that you can help organize this.
Oh, thank you so much. And I'll just take 30 seconds to give a little plug. But sure, my company is Grant Writing and Consulting, and I've been working with BIA. This year will be coming up on 4 years, and we've had a great working relationship. We've raised a lot of funds for some extremely beneficial projects around the state, and this one actually will go to Guam and the Northern Mariana Islands, too. So we work with all kinds of different companies. GrantWritingandConsulting.com is my website. If anybody has questions, can contact me there. But thank you for that plug opportunity, Cindy. I appreciate that.
Well, no, because it is important because there's only a few people I know that really even want to tackle this because it's a detailed, very work-intensive job that takes a lot of focus, and that's more than I'm not going to go near detailed. It's doing my taxes about all I want to think about for a year as far as details. That's about it, So I'm glad someone out there can do that. I want to talk also about the different things that are going to be covered, and I didn't mention volunteers because we have to realize whenever there's a crisis or a catastrophe or some kind of issue coming up, and sometimes we get very lucky, but you still need to have in place all the volunteers, which includes volunteers for just about every field, including Red Cross and many other things. So would they be also necessary? Should they be thinking about taking this?
100%. Yeah, they're sometimes some of the first folks that are on disaster scenes. So we would definitely encourage those groups to come out to the training. We're going to cover a lot of different information: preparation, work planning, incident management, worker protection during high hazard under unique emergency operations. So it's really going to provide a nice overview, regardless of what your existing level of knowledge is. First responders might already have some of this information, but it's a great opportunity to get a bit of a refresh. And then also for our American Red Cross folks and other volunteers to come out and learn some of this stuff maybe for the first time. And here in Hawaii, we have that aloha spirit, and people are eager to get out and help when we do have a disaster. So maybe you don't feel like a volunteer right now, but who knows, maybe the next disaster you're going to get out there. So come down and see us on Monday and get some of this information.
Well, on top of that, there's another factor here that is, I don't know if it's ever really been addressed wholeheartedly, is the coordination between all the people who you are inviting to come out there. Because, in radio sometimes we can coordinate with the county government and the state government, which sometimes don't even know how to coordinate too well themselves, no offense. But then working with volunteers and working with the people who need help and information, working with the contractors, there's a lot of interaction that is necessary, and it's so important that kind of they work together in a cohesive way to really effectively get the job done, And I think that I think people really found this out with the volcano on the Big Island, right?
Mm-hmm. And we are going to cover some of that in work planning. So that's looking at what other organizations are in the area that are going to be contributing to a disaster response. How can you work together? Who's the point of contact? Oftentimes, organizations will create a emergency action plan that maybe is really specific to certain people. And what we want to see is looking more organizationally. So who's the best point of contact in terms of what their position in the organization is? Who should you be contacting from civil defense? Who should you be hearing from FEMA? So we'll look at some of those things as well.
Yeah, that's really important because there was, in the case of the Big Island volcano, there was FEMA, there was the National Guard, there was the county, there was actually the people working with the volcano and the roads, right? There was the road planning. There's all these things that have to work together. And it's so important to kind of have an idea of what's going on before you start, because it could be a chaotic situation otherwise.
And it usually is chaotic because that type of disaster, that's just the nature of what's happening, is a lot of unknown variables right at that moment when people are making decisions on how to respond. So having any pre-planning done is going to be beneficial in the long term.
I like that you're covering incident management, and that sounds like, okay, if I ask someone right now, what is incident management? Probably we'd all guess but not get it right. So explain what incident management is.
Sure. For incident management, we're really looking at a number of things. I think one of my favorite portions of this module is looking at the stress related to first responder resilience. We often don't think how they might be impacted in terms of post-traumatic stress disorder from being really the first folks to respond to a type of event like this. And so incident management more broadly is going to refer to responding to a particular incident and setting up a plan in place to more cohesively be able to respond to that.
So it's actually creating almost like a little company to handle everything and all the parts of it as it occurs. Yeah, well, that's very important, and making sure the right person's in charge of that too, because that involves communication, that involves organization, that involves people management and stress management and all those things as well, right? It's a lot of. If you're just tuning in, I'm talking to Gladys Marrone, CEO of BIA-Hawaii, and also I'm talking to Lesley Harvey, and we're talking about a very important free event that's coming up this Monday, and it's going to be happening right here on Maui on Monday in 2 sessions. 8 to 12, and then 1 to 5. There, you can go to either one. It's the same information, but 2 different times, 8 to 12 and 1 to 5. It's going to be happening in a convenient place right over there at the Maui Mall and the Maui County Business Resource Center. And this is a very important subject, disaster response and preparedness trainings. And it's really a big subject, too, I have to say. You also cover a very important subject, worker protection during high hazard or emergency operations. Now, I mean, obviously, again, this could be anything, but using the volcano and the terrible things that were going on, the lava flow could be extremely dangerous. There could be rocks that falling. There could be people rushing, and there could be communication and travel incidences involved. So worker protection is really important, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And if we think of it from the OSHA perspective in terms of their purposes to protect workers, to ensure a safe workplace free of hazards. So in this module, we're going to talk a little bit about identifying those hazards and controlling for common hazards, so that if something can be avoided, it's avoided, as opposed to mitigating something that can't be avoided. So look at some possible hazards, electrical hazards, particularly as it relates to disasters. We might have an electrical hazard as a result of flooding. So there's going to be a really specific protocol that we'll use to mitigate any sort of safety or hazard that could be faced. Down power lines, restoring power safely after storms, with those considerations, portable generators, tree trimming, debris removal, lots of things packed into that module.
That's very important. And again, we're talking about so many different agencies having to work together. You know, it could be also things such as, well, if you have a tsunami, you know, you get the Coast Guard, you get all of those people involved. You can, again, get the road people in charge of transportation and the roadways. And of course the county and the individual and tying in again with the state. It's a huge situation, and it's sometimes we do disaster preparedness, but I don't know I can't recall anything particularly like this that has been so cohesive as far as in trying to involve all the people who would be involved in this. This is the first time I've heard of a workshop that does and is open to the public that tries to cover everything in that regards.
Absolutely. We really see it as an opportunity for people to become more informed. When we have a disaster, people are eager to help, eager to respond, and we want to make sure those folks have an opportunity to learn about safely responding and making themselves available in a manner that is going to ensure their safety and the safety of the folks around them.
And some of these jobs, like I know FEMA, goes on a lot longer after the disaster happens. There's a lot of things that have to be done as far as the cleanup and as far as help and the time involved in reconstruction, and that's where the contractors come in as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Contractors are definitely going to be on hand to help rebuild areas that have been devastated. So they're going to maybe not see the same circumstances the first responders where there's that initial point of impact and the result of that, but they're coming into maybe buildings that are down or, flooding still existing in residences. So we want to get them the information to address these things safely.
Yeah, I know.
Cindy,
I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
When we had the flooding here in Oahu about a year ago, and we partnered with the city here, and our contractors went out and really just was available for the residents when they had any questions on what they needed to do with their home, what was the process they needed to go through. So just to have the contractors available to share that type of information really alleviates the stress and gives homeowners and the public really peace of mind on that things are going to be better and they can get their homes repaired. So,
does the Building Industry Association help to coordinate who goes out? Because I mean, it could be kind of chaotic again if you have every contractor just deciding to go out there and try to help. But how do you organize that?
Well, how we did it, the city reached out to us in that particular instance, and we reached out to our licensed contractors and assigned each one. So it wasn't a slew of contractors that went out to provide the information, because he also has to be careful to make sure that those contractors are licensed and which our members are, to be giving that information to the public.
Well, that's very important because in a couple of cases, after there was damage in some places, people who weren't licensed contractors were coming in and saying they were going to do repairs and the work wasn't done properly. And sometimes they took the money and didn't even do the work, right? I mean, I've heard some horror stories in the past about what can happen.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's a lot more common than just, and it's not just limited to natural disasters. So we just have to be vigilant and inform the public on what to look for and what to ask for when dealing with a contractor as well.
No, absolutely. It's very, very, very important. And I guess people, if they did have questions about that, could they contact you to find out if the person's a licensed contractor, or how would they know what to do?
We have a membership directory on our website that shows a list of our members that are properly licensed based on the service they provide, but also the state of Hawaii, the DCCA. You can call them to check to see whether the contractor has a license and whether or not there's any complaints that are outstanding against the unlicensed or the contractor.
Who's in charge of
resources available?
Who's in charge of the cleanup? Because cleanup is a huge factor in a lot of the situations that include anything from tsunamis to floods to hurricanes to volcanoes going off. I mean, cleanup's a big job. So who usually is in charge of doing that?
It really depends on what type of disaster, but usually there's a coordinated effort between FEMA, the State Emergency Management Agency will respond, civil defense, and then depending on, again, where it is, maybe Coast Guard will have a response too.
That's a very good point. We had a strange situation here when we had Lane. Of course, everyone was watching out for the hurricane, and then very, very high winds in Lahaina, and a fire started, and unfortunately with the fire it melted some of the fiber optic lines and communications went down, and the winds were so high that unfortunately the fire department couldn't do water drops, and some of the civil defense sites set up in some of the shelters actually lost power. So it was one of those trifectas that you never expect to happen. I mean, here's a hurricane, and the biggest problem, and I think the most damage actually, was from the fire, right? So, and a lot was learned, and there was a lot of people that joined together to help, and I think that is kind of unique in Hawaii. Is there are a lot of people that will try to help out each other. So in that case, this is really important for those who are the natural helpers to get out there and really know the best thing to do, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then if they're interested, or people that think they're in a situation that could be a kind of dangerous situation, if you're near any of those areas that naturally flood, or if there's flash flooding, you might even want to go to this site, this special workshop. It's on Monday, and again, it is absolutely free. You heard right, it's free, and there's 2 sessions, 8 to 12, and in the morning there at the Maui Mall Business Resource Center. That's the county site there, kind of just across from IHOP. And then there's the afternoon session, which is 1 till 8. But
1 to 5.
I'm sorry, 1 to 5. Bad eyesight. the 5 look like the 8. And it's best if you pre-register by going to BIA-Hawaii.org. It's BIA-Hawaii.org. And if you're hearing this in any other part of the state, Oahu's having one February 6th, and Hilo on February 7th, Kona on February 8th, and Kauai you have to wait till February 25th. And then out in Guam and Saipan and all of those places also going to be doing, and this is important, of course, for those places as well. They have other unique situations going on there for sure.
Absolutely. And also, just a phone number, if anyone has questions and wants to get in touch with somebody directly, you can call us at 629-7505. That was 629-7505.
So you probably want to, if you're on Maui, dial 808-629-7505. And that's the BIA Hawaii. Is that the office number for BIA Hawaii?
Yes, and you'll be connected to Barbara, who can answer any questions.
Well,
I'm project director.
This is important, and I would love to see maybe another one too, because sometimes this might even fill up. I hope you maybe videotape it also, so people could watch it if it's taped or recorded or something as well.
Yeah, we hadn't considered this, but really the best thing is if people come out, because that allows us to demonstrate to our funder that the resources that they're able to provide for free are being utilized. So we're more likely to see these types of opportunities in the future, and we can do more of these types of trainings when there's a good response. So come out, come see us.
Yes.
Pick one of the classes. It's just 4 hours. It's not a full day, and it is free.
It's wonderful service, and I thank you so much for doing it. It's been great talking to both of you.
You too,
Thank
Cindy.
you.
We hope we'll see you or somebody from the station on Monday as well.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much, and aloha to you.
Aloha.
Thank you.
Bye.